if I just may read the email, and then I would propound the question to the committee. It's an email from Representative Acree to Eric Groves, and it says, "Thank you. I feel better knowing I didn't screw up my calendar. Let's talk after the election. I appreciate your support." And before that, that was at 2:02 in the afternoon.
And tell me who it was to and from.
It was from Representative Acree to Mr. Groves. It's under D, I think, section
D. D as in David?
D as in David, yes, sir.
Okay.
And then there's a email before that from Mr. Groves to Representative Acree on the 29th also, where he says, "Sorry, I got tied up on another visit and was unable to get a hold of you. At this point, I think we will just mail you a check since we are right up on the deadline. We can always talk policy after the election. Let me confirm on the amount and when it will be mailed. I apologize again." And it seemed, my question is, was there at least an expectation on the 29th that an additional campaign check was going to be mailed, I presume from the Chiropractors Association, to Representative Acree?
Okay. Senator Kevin.
So that was a pack check, and that was kind of coordinated around the possibility of having lunch and talking and getting that.
There has been, it's my understanding, there have been a lunch scheduled where it would be a fundraising lunch. There was some kind of scheduling problem. There was another fundraiser in, I believe, Grand Junction that day. So that was before the 29th. That was canceled. I think it was supposed to be the 23rd. And they were getting back to Representative Acree, or candidate Acree at that time, to discuss when they could meet with her and give her the contributions.
Okay, so Representative Acree, you said that the message that was left on your phone on the 15th by Mr. Groves said, "Sorry, we didn't follow up. Things got away from us, and but I do have a check for you." So there was an expectation at some point, perhaps at this point on October 29th, that they were going to do some fundraising for you, but it turned out that they didn't, and now they're following up.
That is true. In October, we had talked about doing a lunch for fundraising.
Okay, but the lunch never happened.
Right.
You never got any checks from that fundraising effort.
I got lots of checks from individual members and just in the mail, but nothing formally.
Was
Senator Kevin.
I guess the expectation then of this check or these funds being discussed around the 29th of October, were those in fact mailed at some point?
Well, ask Mr. Groves when he gets up here. I don't really have the answer. My point was simply that these checks were promised before the election. Of course, immediately right after the election, Representative May was reelected as minority leader, and on December 12th, he announced he was going to step down. In other words, there was, at least from my client's perspective, they were going to give Representative Acree checks long before any of this leadership came up, when Representative May announced on December 12th that he was going to step down and leave the legislature.
That was quite, Mr. Chairman, there was quite a few weeks between
Yes.
that time, and it seems it's a little tough when all that focus is around that weekend and this issue. I mean, just for somebody reading this out of the blue, which is why I was focusing on that date, the fact that that message was sent that didn't really indicate that they were raising the money, and then all of a sudden there was all this activity around checks on the 13th and 14th.
Mr. Kaufman, any other issues of clarification from your perspective?
Just one. We put in our statement, if I could ask the committee to ask Representative Acree, it's my understanding that when my client, Mr. Groves, came into Representative Acree's office on December 16th, that he tried to initiate a conversation about the leadership race between Representative Balmer and Representative McNulty. And that Representative Acree said, "No, we can't talk about that," or words to that effect, and that at that point they ended up not talking about it because she said they couldn't. And is that true or not?
Okay, and so Representative Acree, told you that they supported Representative Balmer and asked to discuss the leadership election, and you told him no, but he'd already told you that who they supported. Is that an
Yes.
accurate
Yes.
description? I mean, and that's what happened was
Yes.
that. So can you tell us again what order that sort of happened in? Did they say, hey, we support Balmer, we'd like to talk about leadership, or we support?
Well,
leadership?
the first part of the discussion centered around, they had checks for me, campaign contributions. I didn't want to talk about that at the Capitol either, and we got back by that one. We changed the subject. He wanted to talk about the leadership elections that they were supporting Representative Balmer. When that followed, after can we meet off-site? But once I just said, no, we can't discuss this, he did terminate after there were the comments made about who he worked for. And
then we could talk about that. I'm a lawyer. And
you bet. After that, and I said, look, we just can't talk about this, and he agreed to leave.
So I guess I'm still just a teeny bit so confused. So when he asked to talk about leadership, tell us exactly what he said there and how it involved.
We had been engaged in just casual conversation, and after we finished moving this filing cabinet, he said he wanted to talk to me about the leadership election. And then I said I couldn't talk about that. He still had campaign contributions for me, and I wouldn't return his calls. Could we meet before Friday out of the Capitol? And I said we couldn't, and he said he wanted to talk about the leadership elections. And that's when I asked for his business card. And he said he worked for a law firm, and it was okay for us to have that conversation, that they had given money to my campaign and thought they gave him the right to talk to me about it. And then I adamantly said, we can't talk about this, and he agreed.
Okay, but in that rendition, you didn't say that he said Balmer's name ever. So did he not say Balmer's name?
He said we support Representative Balmer.
And again, I'm trying to figure out, when did he say that in relation to the, can we talk about leadership?
The leadership was the first thing he said before we talked about the campaign contributions and before he said they were supporting Representative Balmer. It was almost like we had two conversations. One was on whether they could give me a donation at the Capitol, and I just said I can't do campaigning at the Capitol. And the second conversation was, can we meet off-site? We're supporting David Balmer, and we just terminated the conversation.
Okay, Senator Cadman.
But he said Representative Balmer, not David Balmer. That was the words.
Senator Cadman.
And this is the Tuesday.